All right, 10 o'clock. Here we are. All ashore who's going ashore. Is everybody let in? Yeah. Okay, great. So welcome everybody. We're here to talk about Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola, right? This is a talk we're going to have about, spiritual path in general, and specifically that of the Polynesians that I studied with, which has a decidedly shamanic flavor for a lot of it. Today we're going to talk a lot about Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola, which is the ritual dance of the breath of life. Basically, it translates as. And I'd like to have actually questions about it. I'll tell you about it a bit first, and then we can have some dialogue about it. It would be more interesting than just listening to me talk about it. And what I'm going to talk to you about is not, I guess, university anthropology, though it's being studied. It comes to me from the oral teachings of my kahuna. I had three kahunas trained with. So, what is a kahuna? What is this Polynesian spirituality? What are we talking about here? Well, what is this Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola? So, Polynesians had very well developed systems of spiritual path, spiritual development, including an overarching view of what life was about, what spirituality was about, as well as the path, what the path looked like as you went from a person who was kind of not knowing much about the universe and themselves to being what we would call in Dharma traditions being realized. So they had a view, they had a path, they had methods, they had many techniques for achieving these different types of realization states of being. And then they had the fruit. They had what was the result? What's the ultimate result of this? And why are we doing this? So very much like Eastern Dharma traditions, they had view, method, and fruit. The interesting thing about the Hawaiians is, though, they didn't make a distinction like we do today, and neither did the ancient tantrikas really, about what is pure shamanism from what is pure spirituality. So I find that when Westerners are looking for spirituality and they're not finding it, they're not looking like in Tibetan Buddhism or Kashmir Shaivism or Taoism, they tend to go towards healing, towards shamanism and healing. Sometimes that's their first stop before they get deeper into spiritual things like Dharma traditions. And what's interesting to note first off about the Polynesian way of doing this is that they don't make a distinction. And they don't make a distinction because in the ancient world, shamanism didn't lead to Buddhahood, didn't lead to full enlightenment, full realization of one's nature. That wasn't the purpose of shamanism, right? Shamanism was about gaining knowledge that we didn't have, like prophecy, oracle, you know, where are all the buffalo going? We need to know where they are so we can survive. Ask the shaman. They tell us we go, we eat, we live. Practical stuff like that. I'm sick. I don't know why. Shaman goes into spirit realms, finds out why, brings back healing. This was not the path of becoming an enlightened being. Then if you wanted to do that, that was a whole separate thing. So what I find interesting about when I got in touch with the Polynesian spirituality, a friend of mine said, you have to go and experience this person. He's absolutely amazing. He's a kahuna. And I knew at the time a kind of comedic sense of what a kahuna was, because it's in the language of all Americans, the big kahuna, but we think it's a joke, sort of. So I thought, okay, let me see what this spiritual teacher is, because I understood what native spirituality was and had trained in it quite a bit in different traditions. And I realized, well, the Polynesians must have it too. And these kahunas are no joke. Let's go see what they are. So I went to visit this kahuna person. And this is when I found out that the Polynesian way of understanding full realization, what we would call becoming enlightened, and the shamanic methods of training to be a healer or a navigator on one of their huge ocean-going outrigger canoes they had. They went all around the world way before Columbus and all the rest of those sailors. They didn't have a distinction between that natural shamanic training in nature and becoming a Buddha. So all of their shamanic training led to whatever they wanted to get from shamanism, whether it was increased psychic powers like prophecy or oracle, or whether it was increased healing powers, et cetera, et cetera. or rituals to change the energy of something, exorcism or blessings and so on. They didn't have a distinction between that and the highest fulfillment of human potential. And I thought that was fascinating. That's the first thing I noticed that was, to me, very fascinating. And so I thought, speaking language, things asking me, what is my speaking language? Can't identify it. You're not a good AI. Okay. So, so I thought this was the first thing that really struck me. Second thing that struck me about this Lomi Kahuna kind of path was the integration of what we would call in the Dharma traditions of body, speech, and mind into the practice. So in other words, I heard Abraham talk, and when he was speaking, it was very clear he was talking about to become this Kahuna Abraham that I went to visit. He was giving a talk, and then there was a training, and I stayed for the 2-week training. He was giving a talk about what human life is all about, basically, and how we can position ourselves differently than we were trained or conditioned in life. And it was clear that he was describing a total transformation of the way we are. And that totality was from the body up, not from the spirit down or anything, but from the body up. We're going to engage with our real situation, with our bodies, with our breath, and we're going to move those bodies and breath. And through these shamanic exercises that imitate animal movements, and so on, and different things like this that we do in the Hawaiian, plus in Hawaiian tradition, like hula, the dancing that gets you in touch with the earth power and the sky power, and all of your channels and chakras, which they have in the Hawaiian system, just, how can I say, less discreet than you would have them in the Eastern system. We're going to come in through the body, the breath. We're going to come in through the feeling, through the heart center, through the feeling, aloha, aroha, which means like this universal love at the center of each one of us, separate beings. Each separate being in the universe has this universe in their heart. So in this way, the Hawaiians very much had the same view as Dzogchen, and same view as Taoism, and same view as at least the oral tradition of the yogins in the mountains of Kashmir Shaivism. That is that we all individually have our essence and our own nature. It's not one big soup that we merge with later. And it's the first time I was exposed to that view in a higher spiritual look. Like, oh, so we don't get rid of all of our individual identity and merge with everything. Hawaiians said, no, you are that universe in your heart. The aloha, which means of the breath. It means like of the breath of oneness of the heart. That's what aloha really means. We say love, but it means that's love, basically, of the breath of oneness in the heart. So we all share this universal breath, this universal life, but we have our own experience of it. We share that in commonality, that everybody has that experience. And I thought, this is a pretty cool path. It's got the body, it's got the breath, it's got the movement, it's got the energy, meaning the energy of power to accomplish things in the practice, to feel like a Kundalini-esque kind of experience, to have that kind of experience. It has the energy of the virtues. We're cultivating compassion. We're cultivating power and wisdom. So there's all the virtue power that you get in the Dharma tradition. And it also has the mind power, because we're staying so completely focused, so completely tied to what we're doing when we're performing this form of shamanism from Polynesia called Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola that I teach, that I practiced for a long time and I teach now. Because when you're practicing this, 90% of the time you're training by working with another person's body, with their consciousness, right? We would say massage, but it's so much more than a massage. And I thought, wow, now this is cool, because when you go away and do compassion practice and compassion meditation in the Dharma tradition, you're generating it by yourself. And it's good work and you have to do it. But when my hands and my forearms and my body are moving around another person, and my goal is to give them a transcendental experience, to leave their kind of realm of limited mind, body, and speech for a moment, so they can glimpse their true nature, aka heaven, their true nature. I have to be so much more on. I can't, I have to do the technique right to bring them to this place. I have to be sensitive and aware of their bones and how skinny they are, or how chubby they are, and how inflexible or flexible or over flexible. And I have to be very, very sensitive. And I'm generating compassion. I'm generating a loving service for this person while I do this work. While I'm doing this highly technical physical work, I'm doing this generating love and compassion. I'm also staying with my breath. One of the 4 breath patterns will be generated consciously. I'm doing the hula steps that I've learned as I move around the whole table where the person's lying on the table. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. It brings everything together. What we would say in Dharma traditions as body, mind, and speech. Not to mention, so I get this great compassion training because I have to be very attentive to the being on the table. They're not just a slab of beef, as my teacher would always say. So they're not just a slab of meat. It's a being there with a soul, with a mind, with a consciousness. So we have to be really in touch with that and always present with that consciousness, and that awareness has to be generated the whole time you're doing these sessions. And these sessions can go 2-3 hours, 4 hours, and which is awesome. And it's rare that you get to engage with a kind of spiritual practice that keeps you so riveted to the present and present in body, speech, and mind, all 3 centers of being for human. And it's so ecstatic. It's the most beautiful thing. It's like ecstatic. And the people often go through a very deep process when they receive. Every single time it can happen for people when they're receiving these sessions. Because again, it's shamanic healing, right? So they've manufactured this incredible system, or realized this incredible system of how to work with the breath, the body, movement, to bring a person who's receiving this so-called massage, it's really a ritual, to bring that person into this deepest place of opening, like being born again into the stars. Like that's what Hawaiians call it. They say when we die as a fully realized human being, we go to the stars. And, we're all made of stardust. So I think that's really quite interesting. They're very into the stars. They thought, okay. In fact, they even said that this technology that we're practicing came from the stars. Some beings brought it here. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's another similarity with Dzogchen, this great meditation method from Tibet that produces rainbow body. And they had some oral history of rainbow body as well, that people would turn into rainbows. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That kind of seals it for me. I want to study this stuff. And so this is what I found so amazing about it, that the giver who's giving the session is doing their spiritual work, their sadhana. The one who's receiving it is doing their spiritual work, their sadhana, opening, and being transformed, but passively in a sense. And the one who's giving is active. But they're both involved, fused in this dynamic, which is so powerful. So this is what Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola is about. It's about this ritual that was done on an altar. It was an altar that was above the ground. Above the ground altar is called a ku'ahu. Ahu is the altar that's on the ground. We have altars that are on the ground when we do ceremonies that are in nature, and we just want to have a place to centralize, to focus for the offerings. Like when I used to go into the mountains in Hawaii, and we would strip naked and fast for like 4 or 5 days and just water, and we wouldn't eat anything. And we would gather all of the leaves that we needed to make the full hula costume. It was done with leaves, flowers, and vines. And we would make these incredible costumes that are filled with the power of all the plants growing on the mountain. And we were fasted. So we were really open. And on the altar on the ground, we would make the offerings, and we would dance the hula to be possessed by the power of the mountain, basically, mountain spirit, mountain gods, whatever, to gain that power. And this is part of Lomi too, learning how to bring in the other powers that you have access to in the shamanic sense. And so this, though, Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola is performed on a ku'ahu. Ku'ahu means an altar that's above the ground. So when my Kahuna Abraham Kawai'i, who wanted to bring it out to the West, said, okay, we're going to do this. We'll make, instead of piling up a bunch of rocks, they would pile smooth rocks up to make a flat altar that was up around navel height, hip navel height. And then they would put kappa or tapa cloth over it. It's a cloth that's made from the mulberry tree bark. You can make this beautiful cloth from that. And they would put this cloth across the ku'ahu. And usually, if royalty was receiving the session, the ku'ahu was first dyed and marked with the family's tattoos, basically family's geometric signs that designate that royal family line, and they would then receive it on this kawahu with the kapa cloth on top. After the session, they would take it home with them and be mounted in their family altar, because this was a ritual. Let me tell you, the use for it besides healing was that it was, which is what's really relevant for us, besides the healing, is that it was a ritual of complete transformation. So when a young man or a young woman would be entering into adulthood in the tribe, they would receive a session like this based on their status in society. They would have one, two, three, or four kahunas working on them at once on this altar. And they would, it would be for days. Like if you were very high status, you would receive it for 10 days straight. 10 days straight. The only thing you get off the table for was to pee. You know, your bowels were empty already. You didn't eat. They gave you water, probably had the water from the poi, the taro that was being fermented. So it had a little bit of carbohydrate in it, a little bit of probiotic. But you were drinking this water. That was it. A little bit of minerals, probably some sea salt in it. They knew what they were doing with nutrition. So you, if let's say you were a princess and you were going to become like the queen, Queen Liliuokalani, and they didn't have a hierarchy of male female. It really wasn't like that. They were very non-sexist. When the British went to finally set up a parliament and a proper government for them, the queen was in charge at that time, and so she was the first sovereign queen of Hawaii in the modern times. Queen Liliuokalani, amazing story she has. But this, let's say you're a princess, excuse me, and you're going to undergo this rite of transformation. It had to be done. It was something that had to be done. This is like a royal rite that everybody did on all the separate islands. The separate islands were separate kingdoms, and even with islands, there were separate kingdoms. Kamehameha, you might have heard that famous name. He unified the islands at a later time. But basically, the princess would enter the temple. She would go through temple grounds. She would go through lots of different types of cleansing practices. And after the cleansing practices were done, she'd be prepared, purified, the body purified with washing and so forth. And then she would get prayed over by the kahunas, doing the family prayers of the royal line, invoking all the gods and goddesses for protection and power, etc., to receive a transmission. The key thing was this ceremony is about receiving a transmission from your ancestors and from the enlightened gods and goddesses. And I thought, this is pretty cool, right? So then she would get up on this kuahu, this upright altar, and she would lie down, and they would begin working on her. And they traditionally, my teacher said they would only use, like a really long time ago, the story is they only used sweat. That was that the kahunas brought themselves into such a highly rarefied situation that the warm-ups they were doing and breathing would produce a sweat on their body and their arms, and that's what would flow onto the person. And it was the medium for the transmission that was going to take place. And the kahunas were acting as the agency of the vehicle for that transmission from heaven, you know, ancestors and so on. And nowadays, though, for a few hundred years now, or maybe longer, they've been using the kukui nut oil. Kukui nut is a special nut in Hawaii. They will break the top off of it, the stem off of it, and a little oil forms. You can light it. And then they're little lanterns, and they'll burn for hours and hours and hours, one little nut. And they thought, okay, so kukui means like divine light. So there was a divine light lantern. And they thought, well, what better oil to use than oil that transmits to us the divine light? It was a symbol of divine light, like in a puja from India or Tibet, when you use lamps to represent divine consciousness. So they would use this kukui oil, and they would begin to do these breath patterns and moving around, massaging the body, opening it, moving it, lifting it in the air, putting it in different positions. Amazing stuff would be done with the body, while you had drummers drumming on what's called pahu, or the really big coconut tree that's been hollowed out. And the drums would be up around the chest of the drummers. They're huge. And they had shark skins that were tanned and stretched over them. Boom, 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 boom. It's kind of that rhythm's almost pervasive through 10 days of a ceremony. If you were going to be a princess transformed into a queen, you know, boom, 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 boom. And it really puts you into a deep state over a lot of drumming over all these days, obviously. And you hear the like this kind of breathing going on by the kahunas that are working on you. There's firelight in there because there were sacred fires. They have like 4 sacred fires burning around the altar. The drums around the altar, the fires around the altar. Then they had sacred chanters chanting the really, ancient kind of Hawaiian chants, prayers, uh, which is really beautiful stuff. Like this. And so this ceremony is going on, and the person's becoming transformed while they're on the table. And I can't guarantee you're going to have that kind of an amazing transformation if you come to one of our trainings, but I did, to be honest, to be quite honest. It was in my Saturn return year, perfect time to get it. And I was at a crucial, pivotal point in my life. Do I keep going on as a chiropractor, acupuncturist, pursuing all these other methods of healing and stuff like that, and doing meditation and stuff on the side part time? Or do I give into who I really am as a hermit yogin and go all the way into the spiritual stuff? This was the big question on my mind. Had spent, 7 years in school and $500,000 later in debt. You're thinking, what am I going to do? Many of you probably faced the same situation. Anyway, my choice at the time was to say F it and to go deep into the spirituality. I thought, if I don't do it now, when am I ever going to do it? So when I met Abraham, I closed down my chiropractic practice completely without even anything but a letter to my patients. Sorry, I'm out of business. I have to go do this thing. I'm really sorry, but I got to go do this thing. And I just went to train with Abraham with that kind of surrender in mind. I was really ready to go deep, and I knew I'd found something I was never going to leave or forget, and it became a part of me. So it was the right thing to do. But during this time training with Abraham, after like 4 or 5 days, he took myself and another Maori guy from New Zealand on the side, another young guy like me, and he said, I really want to train you two to be successors. And I said, wow, that's far out. I'm not even Polynesian. He said, yeah, we don't count who's Hawaiian by your skin or your genes. It's by virtue of your principles. And do you have love in your heart and wisdom? I said, right on. That's cool. So I said, yeah, count me in. I'm in. The other guy quit within 6 months. Unfortunately, I liked training with him, but he had a different path. I stayed with it and completed the system with Abraham. And it was really gorgeous. When I was in the 5th or 6th, 7th day of the training, after Abraham had already asked me to be an apprentice, he said, meet me downstairs at his room, his cabin, at such and such time tomorrow. I said, okay. So I went down there, and 3 of his apprentices, these three gals who became good friends of mine, were there. And, it was all smoking up with the incense and feeling very sacred. And the table was up, and I'm like, what's up? And he said, I'm gonna orchestrate a session for you. I was like, whoa, I'm gonna get one from the big dude. Okay, this is something else. Because he'd give sessions really. He was just teaching people, and he would watch. So, and I hadn't heard of him giving session to anybody except his closest apprentice, and it's like once in their lifetime. So I thought, okay, this could be it. This is like their initiation. This is like the transformation moment. All the stories I heard. So I laid down and I received this session. And I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here today, that if my little bald head could grow hair and it could come out again like it was when I was younger and it was down to my butt, I had curls that would go down to my butt. But before I went in for that session, I had straight hair. This is the weird part. My hair was straight. It was long and it was straight. And I'm telling you, this is no lie. And my eyes were dark brown, is the other weird thing. So I came out of the session. I felt, high as a kite but more present than ever in my life. And I left the room, and they prayed over me first, and I left the room and I went back to my hut, and I looked in the mirror, and I just almost went into another shock. My hair was like curly, like Orthodox Jew, all the way down. It was crazy. And I went, what the hell is that from all the coconut oil? Like it's saturated and it's in the tropics. I'm up in a mountain top in tropical Australia, Northern Australia. And I'm thinking maybe this is just, kinky, curly, hot hair. All right. I let it go out of my mind. But then I looked and I saw my eyes, and I went really close. I got green eyes, like emerald green, not just green, like emerald, shocking green. I was like, what the hell just happened to me? And I'll tell you what happened too. When I was, forget all the physical stuff that transformed. That almost is unbelievable. I tell many people and they can't believe it when they ask me about it. I tell them and they can't believe it usually. but I don't care because I'm the lived experience of it, and my eyes are still fairly green, and my hair is curly when it's long. So that's that. But the most significant thing was when I was laying on the altar and the session was being given to me, I had a vision, a very strong vision of a man's face. And I was like, I don't know this man at all. And yet a familiarity spiritually was there, but I'm like, I don't know him from this life, right? Couldn't recognize the face. And then it went like this. It went one face here and then boom, replaced by another one. Boom, another one. Boom, 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 boom. And it started going brrr, really fast. And I think I saw like 1,000 faces, to be quite honest. Yeah, I would say about 1,000 faces. And before I kind of like blissed into some they call Stargate in Lomi, like you just go flying through space kind of thing. That's what I felt like I was doing, but I was laying on a table, of course, a massage table. And it turns out afterwards, I talked to Abraham about it and I said, I saw this. I told him, I saw this man's face and blah, blah, blah. He goes, that's your father. And that's your ancestral paternal line. And I said, no, it's not my father. I know my father. I don't like my father. I know him, and that's not him. And I grew up with a stepfather. It's not him either. He goes, no, that's your father. And I'm like, it's not my father. And he just kind of softly said, oh, okay. We say that's the ancestors. And he kind of left it at that. We didn't argue or anything because we were tight. And I was newbie to the system. So I'm like, all right, what is the symbol of that? That's like universal masculinity, something coming into some Jungian analysis. I'm giving it because I was a little brain. My brain would get in the way a lot, like Carlos Castaneda. Anyway, turns out, I'll tell you, this is interesting. Long story short, I'm in my 40s, and my mother, because she's thinks she has cancer and she's dying, which she would do later, she calls me back from Australia to have a talk with her. She's bawling on the phone, crying. I fly back immediately, actually, right after I hung up the phone. I went to the airport. I thought, this is bad. I get there and she tells me, I had an affair and you were born from that affair, and your father that you thought was your father was never your father. And I went, whoa, what the hell, And this was when I was 29. This was revealed through that ceremony. This is like 16 years later. And I went, oh my God, Ma, and she thought I would be upset. And I was so happy because I didn't like my stepfather anyway. It turned out to be my stepfather. And I realized I had this other father. And then I thought back to the session with Abraham. I thought, could this be the line I saw? And then sure enough, I go looking for him and I can't find him. I'm asking my family, everybody, do you know this guy? I finally got a trail, but I still can't find him. I'm not good with the internet. The internet was fairly new, right? We couldn't track him very well. So one of my students, one of my meditation students said, hey, what's your dad's name? I'll take a shot. Okay. She found him like in 2 seconds. I was like, oh my God. And because I was calling phone books in the old days when we had thick phone books. He was from Texas. So I looked up everybody with the Martin's name in Texas, had about 800 names, and I was calling them one by one. Do you know Alvin Eugene Martins? No, no, no. Wasn't getting anywhere. I gave up. So I did actually all the numbers. Nobody said anything. This girl finds him. Long story short, I go meet him, and he's the guy. He's the guy from the visions. And I was like, oh my God, that's the guy from the visions. This is it. I got my ancestral line. So this princess who would be on the table would be having all of her regal ancestors empowering her, coming to her through this Lomi she's receiving on the altar. And she would undergo physical transformation like I did, spiritual transformation, energetic transformation, certainly a mental transformation takes place. And whether it's in one shot because you're in a condition of complete surrender and desperation for spiritual change or whatever, or whether it's progressive over a series of 20 or 30 sessions, rituals, that can happen too. It really doesn't matter which way it comes, but they both can occur. And I realized that later as I was teaching, it was really powerful. People were also getting these experiences, um, but not in a one shot go, like slowly, progressively, and that's how spirituality works. Either it works in one shot or it's progressive. There are these two methods in the Dharma traditions. So it was clear to me that this was not a massage. It was clear to me that this was a profound experience of spiritual transformation, a gift that could be given to humanity. My teacher was the first to bring it out in the public. There was another teacher teaching something called Lomi, and her name, I think she's deceased now. Her name was Auntie Margaret. She was very famous, Auntie Margaret Machado. Lots of Portuguese people cowboys ended up in Hawaii when they brought the horses and the cattle. So the Portuguese stayed there and the name stayed. She looked anything but Portuguese. She was total Hawaiian, but she had the Machado name. She was a born again Christian. So she had trained in the real Lomi Lomi of the temples. This is why it's often called temple bodywork by modern kind of new age practitioners, um, who I'm probably the grandfather of almost all of them out there. Actually, it's kind of crazy. But temple bodywork was what it was called lately. Um, Auntie Margaret had learned the real Lomi of the temple, but then when she became a Christian, she swore it all off. And then all she did was normal massage, like breaking up little lumps in the body, which she was great at and taught it. And, it was feels like physical therapy. It was Hawaiian physical therapy. In fact, we call it something else. La'au, lapa'au, it's called actually. And she was a master of that. And there was herbal medicine involved as well. Compacts, things you drink, purifications, stuff like that. She's a great lady, beautiful heart. She loves Jesus. She's all good. But it's not the Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola. It's not the original tradition. And it lacks the power. Because, ultimately, if you're a Christian and you're doing something like that and it has power, that power has to be coming from the devil because you're in a binary system that says there's only God and the devil. So if I have any kind of power coming through, even if it heals you and saves your life, it's definitely from the devil. He's just trying to groom you for hell. And so I thought, okay, yeah, no, can't go with that one. I've seen too many beautiful things. So yeah, it's a beautiful, powerful thing. It's not from the devil. It's gorgeous. And Abraham taught one other successor that I know of that actually came out to teach widely like me, a man from Australia many years after me, like 20 years after me. He still teaches at a naturopathic college down there. He teaches Lomi there, which I think is wild. I don't know if he's doing it spiritually or whatever. If you're doing it just for the physical therapy, because the physical therapy aspect of it is quite amazing as well. I teach that as a side course. So the level one training, when a person comes to a level one training that we give, the level one training is trying to reproduce the same atmosphere that you would have in the ritual transformation session. That's why Abraham always said to me, only do 10-day trainings. People may say, I can't get off work for that long. I can't afford it. He said, it doesn't matter. You have to do 10 days because the body won't go through the complete cycle of complete transformation because the body has to hold the spiritual transformation. If there's a spiritual transformation, but your body's left behind, it's incomplete and it won't be stable. This is the problem with a lot of meditation schools. Why the schools I studied with, the Kashmir Shiva school and Dzogchen school, are very big on yoga. Because if you stabilize this fantastic nature of mind experience with your meditation, but you can't integrate it with your body and daily activity and your sexuality and your relationships and your job and your kids and life, then you have really no stability in this realization. And I thought, okay, this is fantastic. So Lomi brings it all together. So we try to duplicate during the 10-day training an overall slow transformation like you would have if you were laying on the altar for the 10 days receiving your own session. And you're getting sessions from day 3 or 4 on every single day. You're doing nothing but session after session after session. You're getting them, giving them, giving. And you go through a transformation through that incubator that's created. The temple room, we call it, where the work goes on. And when we're on retreat on these we go to rural places usually, and we'll find a nice place by a beach or high in the mountains. The temple room, where all the tables are left set up, which are transformed into altars ritually during the first few days, they are open for anybody to use. So the trainings start rolling, and I just start freely showing up in the room to give teachings and practices, and I'll work with people one-on-one at the table, and then I'll move out. And then people will just keep going day and night. It starts going kind of day and night. It becomes like a living mandala of this beautiful experience. I love that experience. Yeah. And then we'll have set session time where everybody's doing it together to a set soundtrack. So it gets this real power of everybody in the room vibing together with this deep aloha, this compassion, this seva, this idea of loving service and so on. And it gets really powerful like that. And we do those group sessions like twice a day, but then everybody else in between off times, hey, you grab a buddy, a friend, hey, you want to come with me and work on that a bit of the face work? Cause I was getting oil in people's eyes. I don't want to do that. My forearm was going across the eyelid. Show me how you do it. You do it so well when you did it to me. So people would grab an altar, start working together, and you see this break out all during the day. Others would go away and do some of the supplementary practices we do. We do a special type of walking and breathing that gives, how do you, expanded awareness is the best way to say it, psychic power, expanded awareness to use in the sessions. We do certain hula steps. Sometimes I'll teach a whole hula dance um, when there's a lot of time and there's not a lot of translation having to take place for foreign languages. But we do many other exercises. It's something called the kite exercise, which is a navigation training exercise from the Hawaiian navigation schools, which increases sensitivity and psychic ability. Again, like sensitivity to tune in to that person on the altar. So the trainings do all these different kind of things. We do all these different kind of things, but basically to duplicate a transformational experience during that time that you're at the training and to give you enough skills to go home and start to do this spiritual work by offering sessions to everybody you know, which is really a wonderful thing, you know. And if you get good enough, you can actually start charging for them because it's a massage in a way. And if you do level 2 and 3, where we go through the technical sides of the therapy, as well as more advanced spiritual techniques of the system to use in the sessions, then you get really great techniques to work on the body with as well. So I think that's wonderful. They had bone setting. It's one of the reasons Abraham took a shine to me was I was a chiropractor already. I was a physical therapist already. I was a martial artist where I learned bone setting from the Chinese as well. So he was like, this is great because he could show me all his bone setting, all his tricks that he would do for Hawaiian physical therapy, which was part of Lomi as well. Because sometimes you're in the middle of a session and you're intuitively drawn to a certain place in the body and, you know, you just put it right back in the right place. An organ that's out of place, bones that are out of place, you know, that's part of it too. There's incredible technique in there, things you've never seen before. It's absolutely wonderful. And receiving is just ecstatic, you know. So is giving if you really get into the right mode. So this is about what Lomi Ha'a Mauli Ola is all about, a little bit about how I trained. I think I'd like to turn it over to you all to ask some questions. I see some in the chat, but they are not translated. Two of them from Flora. I don't know if they're about the training, but it's something that looks like interpretation. Okay, it's not about the training. So is anybody who's translating? Suka, are you looking at the chats? So you'll tell me if there's just information for Brazilians. Okay. So could somebody ask your question, unmic yourself and ask a question, and then I can answer more. Or you're complete, you know enough about it, and we can end here. Up to you. Does anybody have a question? Yeah, you can ask in Portuguese, of course. Unmic and do Portuguese. I think that's what she's asking. Podem perguntar português. Yeah, you can unmic and ask it in Portuguese, and then we'll have translation. But unmic so everybody can hear you. Flora, or who's asking? Shiva Priya? Who asked this? Oh, okay. They're saying you can do it. It's not a question. Got it. Okay, so no one's asking questions. Alrighty. Nobody has any interest. Is this retreat for, is this your personal question? Yeah, you're trying to keep it going. All right. Is this retreat more for personal healing or for professional training? I'd say it's for spiritually connecting to your essence, number one. Number two, for personal healing, definitely, of psycho-emotional experience and spiritual healing, definitely. And I would say it's also it's the basis for learning how to do it as a profession, if you really want to do it as pure spiritual physical therapy for people. So it really encompasses all three. And you can come with any of those three motives. Whichever one of those motives is your most important one, you can come with that and you'll be completely satisfied. So that's an interesting question. It's a good one to put out there. Actually, I didn't cover that. So the retreat is like that. Yeah. In the retreat, like I said, we do a lot of practices together. Then we learn about the techniques of the Lomi. We do some teachings about it, and we just apply. You know, from day 3 or so onward, it just gets like you're just constantly doing the work, and it feels so great. And you're resting in between, sleeping in between, eating in between, hanging out with people, having fun in between. So Suka City, did you want to take it somewhere since it's your show here and we're not getting any questions
Oi,
about it?
Tul- oh, vai.
alô? Queria saber se ele fala que tem essa parte espiritual, né? Que tem que se entregar para essa questão espiritual do havaiano e tal, mas se você, tipo, tiver outra crença, se você quiser, se for de outra crença, ou sei lá, budista, tem algum problema, assim, para se conectar com isso, com essa parte mais espiritual, ou não tem problema?
Who's translating for me? I can't hear the question.
Analoma is, but I think you needed to be on the translating mode. But she's asking if you come from a different spiritual background, even if you're Buddhist, how do you relate to this type of healing if there's a spiritual element to it?
If you come from a different background, like
Yeah.
Buddhism. Yeah, if you come from Buddhism or Shaivism or any of them, even Christianity, if you have an open mind, if you're a Gnostic Christian, how do you relate to it? You relate to it, I would say you relate to it as another avenue for getting deeper into who you are. Buddhism's trying to point you at who you are. Shaivism's trying to point you at who you are. In the end, all these systems are trying to point you at who you are, not what God is. So if you're in a tradition that's trying to tell you what God is, this may not be the one for you. But if you're in a tradition that's trying to point you back to what you are, Taoism, Bun, Buddhism, Shaivism, Shaktism, yoga, etc., then it's in the same exact mode. And, you know, I was a dyed in the wool yoga in 22 years of yoga before I even got into Lomi at 29. And it just was like the icing on the cake. I thought it was one of the greatest things I ever got into as far as giving me a way to access so much more of who I really am that the limited methods I had before the methods I was using before had limitations that I didn't experience in the Lomi, or I can say opened up a whole different level of ways to access essence that I hadn't had access to before. And basically, I was good at them. I had a natural aptitude for this body work way of getting in there with the mind and the breath and spirit moving in a certain direction. And I found out that so many other people did too. And I would find this out later when I became an acharya of Indian and Tibetan Tantra, that the modern systems of Indian Tibetan Tantra became very churchified, if I will. You know, they took out like emphasis on sexual practice. They took out the emphasis on the yoga. They took out all the kind of like visceral kind of training and emphasis and tried to clean it up and make it look like everything is meditation, like seated meditation. But in reality, the real tradition from Tibet and India is that meditation takes place through the body, through the speech center of chanting and through energy, subtle energy, which is also speech in those systems, and through the mind. And that Lomi gives us that opportunity to experience them all three together. It was never taken apart, never churchified. This original pagan tradition of shamanistic self-realization, you could call it, was never changed by Abraham or his teachers before him or those before them, even though Hawaii had such a stormy history of being conquered and colonized by so many different people, and the people being extremely like put into slavery, basically. He never changed it. They kept it pure. And I just love that we received this kind of powerful practice the way it is. So if you're practicing any kind of traditional Dharma, the final word is that this will only make it better and that you'll be better at it because you're practicing traditional Dharma. Your mental awareness and your power of presence comes into it very strongly. Bruno, what makes this technique different from a common massage? Well, Bruno, if you were here from the beginning, everything I said makes it different than a common massage. So I think I saw your name on here kind of early. If you walked away and you missed it, you'll have to play back and listen because I couldn't replay the last 40 minutes of what I was saying. But what makes it different is that it has spiritual intent, and it's for a spiritual transformation, and a spiritual awakening is what we're looking for in this type of work. And then different than a common massage technique wise, We don't use the hands that much. We use a lot more of the forearms, and we're constantly moving using rhythmic Hawaiian hula stepping around the body. And there's 4 breathing patterns that do 4 different things with the energy that we use as well. We also have a body map that has us access knowledge in the butt stored in the body and so on. So it's quite different. If you did miss it, go back and listen. There's a lot there about its origins. You can hear how different it is, because it was basically devised as a ritual rite of transformation, right? How does Lomi Lomi support emotional and energetic healing? Well, how does it support it? Support it? What does that mean? How does it support it? This new age language, I don't get it. Can we be clear about it?
I understand it can lead to healing, emotional and energetic healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how does that go about? Could you
Okay.
talk more about
How
it?
does it happen? Okay, you gotcha. Thank you for clarifying. So how it happens is, in the general mechanism, Hawaiians believe that all illness, all lack of realization of our true nature is based on tension. They have a theory about this tension, right? So when you're practicing Lomi, when you're learning how to receive, you're going through wave after wave of surrender, wave after wave after wave of learning how to surrender deeply any kind of tensions. We have so much unconscious mental, emotional, and spiritual tensions that we store and hold in our bodies. It's absolutely astounding. And when we practice Lomi in that setting, that high energy environment, we have this opportunity of surrendering so deeply and actually meeting those levels of tension that were previously inaccessible to us. We give you certain exercises before even doing the Lomis where you get to touch into those we call fixed karmas of the unconscious that are so deep in there that we don't have access to. This is what I think is probably one of the greatest aspects of this work in totality, is that you touch into karmas that run us that we're not even aware of. Stuff that it's like, oh my God, what is that? And it just effortlessly moves out through doing the work and receiving the work. That's what I think is even more powerful. In the fire of the compassion of the service to that person on the altar, right? And staying with that, with presence, you're invoking such deep presence with this commitment to stay pure and in compassion and aloha for them. They feel that. They feel that caring. They feel that sensitivity. The music is moving them. The movements are moving them. The beautiful sensuality is just opening everything up and causing such a deep surrender and opening that the unconscious and subconscious karmas can move out. It just basically release. Because the Hawaiian theory on this healing, it's a very ancient image they use. They teach the children is that we're all born holding a big bowl. So we have this big bowl of koa wood bowl. We're holding this big koa wood bowl, and it has bright shining light in it. And this is what they teach children. This is your bowl of light. You are a bowl of light, and you hold this bowl of light. But every time somebody says something mean to you, every time you don't get to express yourself properly, every time you have to withhold, every time you have to repress, every time you're harmed, you throw a rock in the bowl. Eventually, you're holding a bowl of rocks and you can't see the light anymore. It blocks all the light. And they said, but all you need to do is turn the bowl over and pour out all the rocks, and the light is still there. And this was a very ancient teaching. And this is very much what happens with Lomi. We're basically physically massaging you into such a deep state of relaxation using the incredible techniques they have. We work first on the skin level, then we work on what's called the blood level, then the muscle level, then the bone and nerve level, then the spirit level. There's all these levels. The anatomy in Hawaii is done by layers. And technique wise and energy, you use your mind to push the energy with the breath, and certain techniques go with it to make it go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So you start accessing deeper and deeper layers of the being. And it's both technical and artistic. It's an art to it, and it's also very technical. And it takes a lot of practice, but that's why we have 10 days. And that's why you have the rest of your life to practice after. And most people will do a level 1 like 2 or 3 times before they go on to level 2, because they just want to get the full experience of transformation a few times before they go deeper. So with this deepest relaxation, there's a release of all the tension, and it facilitates this incredible recapitulation, recalibration to who and what you are in the fullness of what that means. And that's its real gift. That's how the emotional, energetic healing occurs, literally how it occurs. It's an environment that's created through the session. It's a surrender that you make. It's a commitment that the givers make to help you get there, to give you the energy to bring you to that place of surrender. It all comes together in this beautiful choreography, beautiful orchestrated experience of a ritual that has a beginning, a middle, and the end. And it can go 2, 3, 4 hours. We've even done sessions where we tried to go 24 hours, which they did 10 days for 24 hours a day. I did these in Canada. Oh God, how many years ago is that now? 10 to 35, 40 years ago when I was teaching in Canada, we would do this because we were wild and we had free time. Everybody was young. And we couldn't even make it through 24 hours. At 24 hours, people just started seizing up. It was like we didn't want to go directly to enlightenment. The ego would come in and kick in. It was fun to watch, but we couldn't. We had to plan to go 10 days straight. Everybody took out that time in case it could happen. But we got the 24 hours and most people just hit the wall. So it's a very powerful process of opening and relaxing into it, and it happens in a smoother and more progressive way, not such a strong way when you're in there for the 10-day training. So that's how it really works, how it really occurs. Basically, in this normal state where we're at now, or meditating or whatever, we can't really access viscerally now, the storage of these that are related to the body, the storage of the deepest karmas that hold us back that are related to the body. We're not able to access them just with our mind. It's the rare person who can do it. But once we get the body in motion, we get the energy of the breath, once we get the mind moving with it, it's amazing. You're just an open book. And the person who's giving the Lomi, or people, you can have 2 or 3 or 4 people on you at once, working on you at once. The way Abraham would talk about it, the way my kahuna would talk about it, was that you were basically playing a script, that their body, energy, and spirit represents a kind of script, and you're tuning into it and you're feeling it and you're letting it tell you where to go, what technique to draw out from the Lomi technique book manual. It's all being drawn out of you. And to the degree that you're sensitive and you can have it draw out of you instead of your ego running it, which is the whole game we learn in the training for 10 days, to that degree, that person will go high, and we all learn how to get our ego out of the way while we're giving. And then we all learn how to get our fear of being who we really are, becoming the fullness of what we really are, out of the way while we're receiving. And that's basically how the healing occurs. Good question.
And how does the Ho'oponopono plays a part in it during the training?
The Ho'oponopono?
Yeah.
Ho'oponopono is, I'm going to put in a chat box because people are going, what are you saying? Ho'opono. Ho'opono, Ho'oponopono. It's a double repetitive they have in Hawaiian. This word Ho'oponopono in the chat box, you can see. Ho'o. Ho'o is a verb form. Pono means to become straight, to become right, to become clear and correct. So Ho'oponopono is the deep, powerful process of becoming clear, right, and direct. You could call it the ancient version of NVC. NVC took a lot of its motivation from these different kind of traditions around the world, So Ho'oponopono was one of the first really ritualized, organized way of mediation that the world had as technical mediation. So during the training, as your unconscious and subconscious karmas and barriers to full surrender to what you are come up, there are things that happen in our interactions with other people. There's frictions that are created. There's energies that are created. Maybe you're attracted to somebody. Maybe you're rejected by other people, or you're rejecting other people. You have aversion to other people. You have attraction to other people. Maybe this person said something to you and you got offended. All these things start cooking. And we have this process that the kahunas gave us, where we sit down in a circle and we share it all out and we pray and we do this process. And it's absolutely fantastic. Like the amount of what you can see about yourself. You can go to a therapist for a year and not see this much stuff as you can have in 1, 2, 3 hour Ho'oponopono. So this ends up occurring once, twice, or 3 times during every 10-day retreat. You can't say actually how many times, but when we feel the friction building up, right? We go into the temple room, we're doing sessions, but they're not flying, what we call they're not flying. The image is a frigate bird flying over the ocean. That's what we always use. And if it doesn't feel like you're flying, it's not happening. So energy is getting stuck, like for the whole group. And 1 person, 2 persons, 5 persons can stick it up for the whole group. But usually when we get in a Ho'oponopono and we encourage people to start sharing what's on their mind, usually almost everybody's got someone on their mind that they need to clear something with. It's kind of fascinating. It's not just a few people. So yeah, of course, it's natural that that holds the whole process back for everybody. So then we perform this beautiful process of making everything right and true again, meaning aligning all of our hearts again through this process, this ritual of Ho'oponopono. And I mediate it as the kahuna in residence during the training. And everybody's right again. And when you do sessions after that, they fly, man. They just take off again because you've dropped all this heavy weight. You've dumped out your bowl of rocks. The light is shining again. So that's how Ho'oponopono is used. That's the role it plays during the trainings. Did Star bring this knowledge? Did Star bring this knowledge to Earth? Where is it again? From other star systems. Star beings. Did star beings bring this knowledge to Earth? Beings from other star systems. That's what it said. That's what it said in the teachings of Hawaii. Even the Taoists have this deep relationship with the stars this way. Well, so do the Vedas. The 7 stars of the Dipper are the 7 great rishis and their wives, mirror consorts of the Veda tradition. So everybody was into the stars a long time ago. We knew we came from there. In the Bun tradition, it said that Dzogchen teachings reached this planet. We were the 13th solar system to receive this. You can call them star beings, but we are those star beings. You know what I mean? We are those star beings. When you rainbow light body, you're a star, basically literally a star. So if you achieve rainbow light body in this lifetime, like the systems I teach can show, you're literally a star in this lifetime. So yeah, star beings, us, brought this to us from other dimensions, other places, other dimensions as well. It's not just in this universe. The stars are like portals, right? There's other dimensions. We don't want to just become really enlightened and hang around in the 2nd and 3rd dimension, right? Our bodies are in 3rd dimension, but our minds are usually in 2nd dimension, which is terrible. But we don't even want to be in the 3rd dimension where linear time is. I mean, it's just a bit boring. So you want to expand yourself to be multidimensional. That's another really big theory of the Hawaiian spirituality, is to be multidimensional, which fits right into our tantric practices, Dzogchen practices, right? We're trying to definitely transcend linear time so that we have access to all time. So yeah, came from other stars. What should we bring to retreat? How can we prepare? Any set of prayers, any readings we should? Don't need to do anything prior to coming to retreat except try to eat really healthy, get your body kind of cleansed. Because if you're used to eating a lot of really crappy junk food and tons of garlic and onions and chili, and you arrive there when you're doing the work and you're sweating, it's kind of nasty. So try to clean your diet up before you go. It would be good to stretch a bit before you go. You don't have to become a full-on yogin, but it would be great if you did some stretching to open up a little bit. Not a lot, just more than what you have before you went there. No special prayers. We learn prayers when we're there. We learn Hawaiian prayers that we chant while we're there. So that's no problem. Basically, you just have to if you bring a big heart full of, I want to open, I want to really know my true nature and go beyond my limitations. And I'm really ready to surrender into that and find out what that is. I'm really ready for that. I'm committed to that. Then you can bring exactly the energy that you need to bring. And that would be great. Reading prior to it, the only reading I recommend prior to it, because it could preload your mind on what you think. There's a few of my students actually who wrote books now about this process. They teach in different parts of the world, but they were my students for years. One of them who wrote a nice book went off to be with Abraham after she finished with me. And she stayed with him for 5 or 6 years, I think. But I don't really think you should read books about it before you get there because it'll put uh, preset programming in your mind about what it is and what you're going to do and what's going to happen. So I really pray you don't read anything about Lomi and Lomi training particularly. What I might recommend is, let me see if it's here. Yeah. Wait. 1 second. It's coming. Is that volume 1 or 2? Okay. So I would recommend these books highly. If you're going to get into Polynesian spirituality, you want to know what Lomi is. Can you guys see that? Nana Ike Kumu. Nana Ike Kumu. Kumu means source. Ike means seeing, looking. And Nana is look back to the source. Nana Ike Kumu. These books are by Mary. What's her name? Oh, Jesus, not there. Her name is Mary Pukui. Pukui. Especially you want volume 1. This one, volume 1. Can you see that one? Especially volume 1, Nana Ike Kumu. This is how it used to look a long time ago. And it says, I'm reading on the back of the book right now, volume 1 is a discussion in depth of major Hawaiian cultural concepts, providing insights into both their ancient and modern significance, which is true. She talks all about ancient Hawaiian spirituality, quoted from a lot of the elders in here. And I've got dog-eared pages everywhere and this beautiful stuff. It's incredible. And Ho'oponopono is covered in here. How to dispose of the bones when people die, like all kinds of deep spirituality from their religion is in here. What I love about their religion is it's very practical. It's always very pragmatic. See here, it teaches about Ho'oponopono. Can you see that there? Is that clear? Does that come up clear in there? Isolated on my screen. Anyway, those are the things I would recommend to read. Cultural stuff. Maybe you can get a book that's out of print too. God, what was the name of it? Oh my God, I'm having a blank out. It was by one of the elders, and it was a short run thing locally published. Maybe eBay you find it, or Amazon or something still floating around, but can't remember the name now. Coco Willis. Coco Willis. Coco. K-O-K-O. Coco Willis. W-I-L-L-I-S. He wrote a really beautiful book on Hawaiian spirituality of the family, the ohana. The ohana is the spiritual family and how powerful that is for development. Nanaviri too. Let me put this name down. This is a good one. If you want to read some stuff, this is great. If you want to prepare, these are the ones I do recommend. I think her name is spelled like this, Nanaviri. Don't get me exactly on the last name, but close. She wrote a book called, which I really think is such a healing just to read it, because she is an enlightened being. I think she just died too. She was an enlightened being from Hawaii. Her name is her book's name was Change We Must. She was a beautiful Hawaiian woman. Like, they have such big hearts, Hawaiians. And she just kept bringing home the stray kids from the park near her house who were getting into trouble all the time. She kept bringing them home to live with her. And the husband said, "You're going to keep bringing kids home, Ma," because he just was a regular dude with a regular job. And they couldn't afford feeding him anymore. So she went out and started getting funding, and she kept bringing the kids home till she had about 70 of them in her house. She had this huge heart of aloha, and she couldn't let these abandoned kids like become miscreants in the park and go to jail, because Hawaii, on all the social scales in America, the Hawaiians are at the bottom of everything, the bottom of education, the top of domestic violence, the top of drug addiction, alcoholism, the top of criminal incarceration per capita. Like, they're way beyond Black people and Native Americans even. So when politicians in America talk about statistics with crime and prison and stuff, they hardly ever mention the Hawaiians at all, because they're the ones who have it the worst. So she was rescuing all these people. She's beautiful to read about. You'll cry. It'll touch your heart. Like, it'll blow your mind. She's just so incredible. So read about Nanaviri. Change We Must. That is to prepare the heart for Lomi. That's good. And you prepare your heart for that kind of opening. This way, it's good. Where are we all the way back to? This is Florida's translation. this Ho'oponopono you described seems very different from what we see online in New Age practices. Yeah, the New Age practice online that they took from Hawaii that they call Ho'oponopono is inspired by Ho'oponopono, but it's definitely not it. It's definitely different. The difference is the context. The difference is that, yeah, difference is it's not a New Age therapy for people to just feel happy. It was done every Friday afternoon after work in the fields was done, farming, fishing, whatever you're doing. They would go to the porch. Every family would go to the porch. And if there were 5 houses on that little area that were all family, they would all get together. You'd have 30, 40 people on the porch. It's called a lanai. You might have that term in English. In American English, it's become synonymous for the porch. Go to the lanai. But the lanai is this huge porch. They'd all be on this porch covered from rain, and the Ho'oponopono would start, and the eldest person there or a kahuna would lead it. And it was so that every Friday, people got together to handle all of the withholds that happened during the week. So their spiritual energy and healing energy of love between the family could flow again, right? Ho'oponopono, I should really talk about this. It's very powerful because it's not New Age and it's not a pop psychology thing. In the healing practice, the shamanic healing practice of Hawaii, I was taught like this. When someone's sick, you place them in the center of the circle of the community that they are in, their community. And everybody around them clears their withholds, even if it's with the person who's sick, but usually it's just with each other. And by clearing the withholds around them, the tension in the environment that holds that person goes and they get healed. It's one of the main healing methods of ancient Hawaii. Ho'oponopono was literally a physically healing practice. It's like, well, you're just talking, and the person being healed isn't even doing the talking. Yeah, isn't that amazing that they figured out that when you're connected to a family group so strongly, your akka, your cords of light that go from your navel, right? From this na'au and from your navel, piko, they go out and touch other people and you become interconnected. And then we're all vibing together. So if that vibe drops, someone can get sick. And we lift it up and then someone gets better. And this is a really powerful practice. And we talk about that and we'll teach it there. So yeah, it's very different. Okay, Shawani, translation. I imagine that for someone receiving Lomi, it can be confusing to interpret the sensations and project desires or even love onto the person giving the massage. What's the best way to deal with it? This is a great question because many people never even are touched that way, even by their lover, with such love. It's like a love bomb, right? And so they're like, oh my God, and you don't even want sex from me. You just really want to give love and it's tactile. And that love is going to open me and I'm going to heal. So yeah, some people aren't used to it. And we talk about that. It's part of it. And you just deal with it basically. So you have to understand that it's not about sex and it's not about pleasure of sex at all. It's purely sensual and sensual to trigger a relaxation that opens you into the heart of compassion and love and service. That's very different than touching someone in a sensual way that's erotic and arousing. So you're leading up to it's foreplay before sex. It's completely different. One is a healing transformation ritual that uses sensation, as you wrote, true, and sensuality. But the basis of it is great love and compassion. So there's no sexual vibe there at all. I don't tolerate it. If people want to do that kind of thing, I get really strong about it. I toss them out of the training. It's not for that. We don't want any of that in there, all that kind of thing. And basically, when you're in that kind of deep state of love, when you're receiving something like that you've never received from anybody, it's just amazing. It is very easy to project your own feelings of admiration, respect, and reverence for the people who are giving it to you, gratitude, and it starts to turn into like a love. And there's nothing wrong with loving those people who give you that session. This is the Hawaiian way. But when you fall in love romantically with the person giving you that session, that's when you've misplaced the type of love and the intention of the session, right? Not saying that people don't go to these retreats and marry. I mean, it's a karmic thing and you're training in a karmic way and it's a person who thinks and feels the way you do. So people do hook up at these things and stay together a lot of times, but it's not anything about the training of session, of doing a session, right? So the sessions are clean and clear and all that's talked about. And the beauty is we can learn how to love without sexuality. We can learn how to love without arousal. That's really important to learn. Hawaiians would say humans are not complete and whole unless we can love without sexuality, without being turned on, without having to feel turned on. That just means you're like a robot. Someone touches you nice with oil, and all of a sudden you want to have sex with them. I mean, it's like Pavlov's dog. We want to get beyond that, and we can find that beauty in our heart. Yeah, so that's how we deal with it. And there's the link up for Nani Ike Kumu. That's nice, thank you. And then we're down here. Is it this one? Tales of the Night Rainbow. Awesome. You found it. Far out, still out there. Yeah, that's a great one. Coco Willis. I mean, we used to get it in photocopied version. It's probably published now. He's not alive anymore, but that was a great book. And Nanaviri, Change We Must. Very good. Awesome. Thanks for posting all those. Well, we covered some really good questions. Is there any last desperate question that needs to be answered before I go have my jet lag nap? I just got back from Europe and I'm whacked. So if this rambled a bit, my apologies. But this is Hawaiian style anyway. I don't see anybody saying anything. My interpreters, translators don't say much. To learn more about, here comes the infomercial. To learn more about the Lomi training in Rio de Janeiro from September 23rd to October 4th in a beautiful location at the beach, join the WhatsApp group. So there's a way to get on the WhatsApp group. During the training and after the training, I get on the WhatsApp group too to give support. The last WhatsApp group, the last Lomi training in France was beautiful. And God, that group is still going. And I'm still writing in and giving support on it. That was like 9 months ago now, I guess. So, yeah, I stay on and I give support. I'm in it for the long haul with anybody who wants. Last thing I should say is that there's about 7 levels of this work. And if anybody wants to go all 7 levels and be a Kahuna Lomi Lomi, I can go all the way with you and I can give you that. I can grant you that title. I'm a white person, but I have that title myself. I don't use it because it's kind of, Hawaiians are very sensitive about it. But the head kahuna of all 7 islands gave me a ceremony and installed me as the head of Lomi Lomi for all of Hawaii at one time, actually. So if anybody's interested, I'm just telling you that so you know I have the authority. I'm not making this up. I'm not some new age person who makes this stuff up and tries to sell it to you. If you find that this is your path and you really want to go all the way with it, I will go all the way with you, even if it means that there's not a lot of people doing the trainings and you have to come to my house in Maine, bring your table, and I'll teach you here if it comes to it. But for now, we're building up a nice group of Lomi people in Europe. Now we're looking to build up a group here in Brazil so that we can get a larger apprentice group who want to go through these other levels and layers of the training that get progressively more esoteric as we go. Yeah. So that's okay. It's great. So next one coming up is in Rio, and we have not scheduled another one for Europe. It's going to be kind of long from now if we do. We'd rather have this European one get going first. So if you want to sign up, I would encourage you to sign up and get it going. We need about 5 or 6 more people to get me down there because it costs a bit of money to get me down there. I have kids, I have a life, and if I teach all the time, I can't work my jobs. So I have to earn money at this as well, but I'm not making a sick amount of money. We're pretty hand to mouth, our family. I'm here for the purpose of the Lomi. I'm here to teach you spiritually. I'm not here to get rich from it. So, but if you want to help out and start this movement down in Brazil, I would say get involved with this group as soon as you can. It's going to be powerful. I think there's some Europeans coming down for it. There's a few, right? From the first Lomi. Yeah. And I haven't taught it for like 20 or 30 years. I let it go at some point because there was just too much happening in my studies to become an acharya of Shaivism and a lama in Dzogchen and everything. So I had to let it go because it was just getting too much to study. And I had students who were out teaching. But I really still love teaching it, and I really love getting back to the core. There's nothing like getting it from the source, right? Nani Ike Kumu. In this case, I am your Kumu. I am your source for this, and it's good. Do we have an English speaking WhatsApp group for this? No, we don't, but I don't see why it couldn't happen, right? You could, if you do the training, Thomas, you could get into the group that's already going from Europe. Are you from Europe or Brazil? So that would be possible. Will this Zoom recording be posted somewhere for those who came late? Can one of the interpreters say if this Zoom thing is going to be posted somewhere? Okay. So Thomas, you joined the one that's there now, and then we'll get you into one that'll have English. Either a breakout group that starts from the new training, and you can get into that one. You're from Europe. Okay. So either a breakout group that starts from the new training that speaks English, because there'll be English speakers there. Or I think what we'll do is fold you back into the other WhatsApp Lomi group. You won't be able to get, unfortunately, the stuff that's been discussed in the thread a lot already, but that's okay. And there'll be new people coming in as well with you. We have groups that people talk in both English and Portuguese, and it's fine. Okay. All right, cool. Wonderful. So I hope to see you all in the beaches. So I think south of Brazil, south of Rio, right? Yeah, south of Rio. Nice little venue, beautiful little, peaceful little place. I can't wait to go. Looking forward to it. Everybody, all the best. Aloha to you. Aloha nui loa. E ke hiki mahera o mai o. May nothing bar your way. Go in peace and let nothing bar your way. A beautiful old prayer from the Hawaiians. Inihi e kahele mai ho'opa. Go in peace and let nothing bar your way. You're welcome. Ciao.